Great, recording is now starting. I'm going to give you a countdown and then mute my mic.
Okay.
Great, thanks for doing this. These are great.
Yeah, thanks.
And I love learning it, and then we'll catch up more after.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I am muting myself.
Hi, this is Rebecca with uAvionix Technical Support, and I'm here to go over some training for our qualified installers who are wanting to sign up to be installers for our AV30Cs and TailBeaconX. So I'm going to be going over in this presentation how to what comes with the AV30C to be installed, also the TailBeaconX, so what comes with that and how that's going to be installed. And so we'll just get right to it. So as you know, the AV30C is PMA approved and it is certified for installations in certified aircraft. The TailBeaconX is TSO approved and also certified for installation in certified aircraft. To be a little bit more specific, it's certified as a primary attitude indicator, a primary DG, and a primary slip skid indicator, which means that for IFR flight, if in the requirements of needing a gyroscopic pitch and bank indicator, it can replace that. And also for a directional indicator or your DG, it can replace that. The slip skid indicator is also something else that is required, and it can replace that if you have one that's separate. The AV30 is certified so that it can be removed, your vacuum system can be removed. And so that if you have an attitude indicator and a DG that are on your primary attitude indicator and your primary DG, then you can remove your vacuum system once you install these. The primary skip indicator can also be installed and replaced if you have one of those, especially the ones that are independent. And it can be used and locked in the attitude indicator or locked in the DG. So what is the AV30? The AV30 is a fully digital multi-mode instrument. It mounts in a legacy 3 1/8 inch hole. It's configurable as either an attitude indicator or a DG. The same unit is configured as either. So if you buy an AV30, it comes defaulted as an attitude indicator, but it can then be configured as a DG. You don't have to go and purchase, specifically an attitude indicator or specifically a DG indicator. It's a fully self-contained with dual precision inertial and pressure sensors and allows for a wide variety of pilot customization. The transponder control is available in both the AI and the DG modes. It will be displayed as you can see there to the right. Even if you have it, your TailBeaconX connected to your DG, there will be a page that looks like an attitude indicator on that DG display. If you don't have a TailBeaconX connected, it will just look like a decluttered attitude indicator or a revisionary attitude indicator. So some of the basic features. So this is with nothing connected except for pitot-static power ground to the AV30. These are some of the things that you will get. You'll get an attitude indicator, a DG, a slip skid ball, a 30-minute backup battery at minimum. Actually, they last longer than that. And the heading bug, airspeed, altimeter, baro, AOA, bus voltage, vertical speed, G-load, and then also 3 configurable pages. So that's all with nothing connected. So what we'll do, I'll get into it later of all the things that you can connect to it. So there are some limitations that come with the AV30 when installing it. The first thing is that it does come with an AML STC, so that you are going to need to make sure that your aircraft is on that AML. And if it's not, you might have to find some other means to be able to install it. The aircraft needs to be less than 6,000 pounds and flying below 25,000 feet. So we have that max ceiling of 25,000 feet. It needs to be less than 300 knots VNE airspeed. and existing airspeed and altimeter must remain in their factory locations. So in some instances, you're going to want to have this more in this, you want to improve it by keeping them in the 6-pack orientation. Some panels weren't made that way, but that's how they came from the factory. The idea behind this is you don't want to put the airspeed and altimeter on the other side of the aircraft in front of the co-pilot. You're going to need them still in the direct view of the pilot. Electrical load analysis must be performed in association with the installation, just like you do any other avionics installations. Connection to audio interference is not allowed for IFR-approved non-metallic aircraft due to indirect lighting protection limitations. So just make note of that if you are working on any fabric aircraft, so that they know that they're not going to want to connect that up. A wet compass also needs to be installed in the aircraft. I did make note of the AC 4313-2B Chapter 11, and all the rest of it, you can go there and reference it. It's actually on page 129. And it talks about the vertical compass card and how it's a good replacement for a wet compass. So it's the same idea behind that. You just can't replace your compass with, like, if you have a magnetometer like we have right now, it can't be a replacement for that. You still have to have your compass in the aircraft, specifically a wet compass, or in this case, a vertical compass card. Both of them work. It just can't if you have another indicator that has a magnetometer, like, that's not going to work. It has to be something like a compass. So documentation that you're going to need, everything is on our website, and there's no login required. You don't have to be even signed up as a qualified installer to be able to get this information. We do provide it. We want it to be accessible to everybody so that you can learn as much as you want about our products and how they work. You can go to uAvionix.com/support, and you can find all the documents and downloads there. The STC is available there online. You don't have to pay extra for it. The AML is there also, and the install manual, and make sure you're going to our website and getting the most recent rev. Right now, it keeps changing because we keep making some new software updates. So I would check and see what that is. And then Pilot's Guide also has new revs available, and they come quickly. So make sure that you have the most recent rev for that. Flight manual supplement and continued airworthiness manual. There's also EASA, TCCA, UK, Brazil, and others to be added of all their documentation that's needed. So on that page, you should be able to find everything that you need. So the installation kit. So when you get the box with the AV30 in it, this is what's going to come in it. A 15-pin D-sub connector, your mounting screws, and I will repeat this a few times, be careful of the length, the braided ground strap, 15-pin D-sub itself, pins. So you'll have either one or the other pins that you see to the right there, the original stamp pins or the updated machine pins. If it's a new installation, you're going to have the updated machine pins. The back shell and hardware for D-sub, the D-sub, and then terminals for the braided strap. So as you can see in that picture, that's what it comes with. And like I said, the pins are going to be changed out for the machine pins here going forward. The required wire that you're going to need that's not in the installation kit is going to be mil-spec wire. So you'll need some regular wire and also some twisted shielded wire. Brass hardware for the AV mag and any ring terminals for grounding that you're going to need, and also for your circuit breaker. So crimpers that you're going to need, depending on what type of pins you have. The older style are going to be the Norcomp that you see at the very top there, and then the other crimpers, the AFM 8 with the 13-1 positioner, are what you're going to want for the new machine style pins. The Johnson level tool is very handy to have just to make when you're dealing with the magnetometer. I would recommend that you do need to take out the magnetic part of it so that you don't mess up the magnetometer, because that could be not good for it to have a magnet in direct contact with it. Crimp tool for ring terminals, and also miscellaneous tools for completing the job. Pretty basic. So to start, first thing you're going to need, and the most important thing, is you're going to need to have power going to the AV30. The AV30 is compatible with both 12 volt and 24 volt inputs. It must have a dedicated, properly labeled pilot resettable circuit breaker, a 2 amp one, for the AV30s. And if you're going to have an independent circuit breaker for the TailBeaconX, that can be a 1 amp or a 2 amp circuit breaker. It's recommended to shield the power wire. It mostly comes down to, if you do have issues, you might want to go ahead and just shield it, but you could do without, so that is an option. Power is connected and diode protected with the unit's internal battery via processor controlled switch, and if power fluctuates or is completely lost, the unit will continue to function on backup battery. So I just have that snippet of the circuit breaker, the 2 amp circuit breaker, and ground, and indicating the grounding of the shield if you use shielding. So internal battery operation, it does have 1 hour of operation that needs to be tested regularly. We were actually required to have 30 minutes, but we have an hour worth of operation, and it's usually over that. It is pitot required. You have to have pitot connected to it for it to work while you're in flight. If not, you'd have to be quick at pressing a button, but the functionality of the AV30s are dependent on pitot and static. So you will have to have that connected. So when backup battery occurs, it will happen. You'll see it go on backup battery. If it's still aligning and you shut off power to it, it'll continue to align and say on battery until it aligns completely, and then it'll shut off. If you press a button after power is lost, if it senses airspeed or GPS ground speed, it will stay on also. So, and to shut off the AV30, you want to press and hold the left and right buttons and hold them until it shuts off. Some things to know about for troubleshooting purposes: the airspeed on ground, you need to adjust the indicated airspeed trim, or complete a pitot 0. The adjusting of the indicated airspeed trim is going to be on older software versions. Right now, all the new software versions have a pitot 0. So if you see your airspeed is indicating on the ground and it's just the tolerances are out, what happens is the sensors just get out enough that it thinks it has pitot pressure when it doesn't. And so by clearing that, it just clears it at the bottom end, and so you don't have that erroneous airspeed on the ground. If you get a fail on the battery status, you may need to cycle the power a few times and let it go through the test cycle and get it going again. It might be 3 to 4 times. It actually can be a little bit more than that, depending on how long it's been sitting. It's usually for those pilots that their aircraft sit, over 6 months while they're somewhere else, and so this happens quite a bit to them. And then it also happens if you have units sitting on the shelf for a long period of time. They can get drained out and need this to be completed on them. So the other important connection that you're going to need is the pitot and static interfaces. You're going to need a 1/4 inch rigid tubing. Quick disconnect pneumatic fittings are what we use. A lot of people are confused of these when they look at them. The orange piece there is not to be removed, and it helps with quick disconnecting. So if you can see the tube at the bottom there, so right here you can see that the orange piece is actually sticking out a little bit. When you insert the 1/4 inch tubing, you should hear it click with it, and you'll know that it's been engaged. You give it a little tug, don't tug it too much, but you want to give it a little tug and make sure it's not going to come out. And you should see it pull on it and that orange piece come out just a tad. If it's still stuck up against the metal part, that means it hasn't engaged, and you need to give it a little bit more of a push, or try remove it and re-engage it. Make sure that tubing is flush and that it's not at an angle. To remove it, what you do is push back on the orange piece there, and then pull on the 1/4 inch tubing. So if you pull without pushing back on that orange piece, you can break the unit. And so that is a cost that to be able to repair that. Because those pieces, the pitot and static fittings, are torqued to a certain amount. That's something that we can't have done out in the field. So really recommend being cautious and careful with those, and know how, maybe take your time and figure them out before you go and do it behind the panel, because you're going to want to know the feel of it. So I am showing over here some of the installation kits that you can get. You can refit a whole aircraft with these. I really like them. They've made my life super easy in our aircraft. The Stein Air actually carries this whole kit, and you can talk to them about, what they've been able to, the success rates that they have had with them. I really do like them. They have fittings to go from metal to the 1/4-inch tubing. So sometimes you have some really old aircraft that even have the black tubing that's in there. You can also replace that, and they have some connections that you can use for doing that. So outside air temperature probe, this is something that's optional. A lot of people get it and like using it. It's what you have to get, and you can't get anything else, is a C307PS. It's made by Davtron. Do not connect in parallel with any other of the units. The sensor reading must be trimmed during the installation process to compensate for probe-to-probe variation. See very little of it, needing this. If you have more than 2 wires, then you have the incorrect probe. So we have pins 7 and 14. 7 is the white, 14 is the white blue. Pretty simple. And the way that you test to make sure that it is working is you just display it to the top left on the AV30 and try displaying the outside air temperature. It could be the top left, top right, bottom left, and you can display the outside air temperature. One of the neat features that are coming with the AVHSI, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is that once you install one outside air temperature probe to one unit, it'll share that information with the rest of the units. But I'll get to that a little later. So audio output. There are some panels that you can connect to the AV30. I will tell you that a lot of people try hooking up all kinds of different audio. I will tell you the low, it can cause some problems with different types, certain audio panels and intercom systems. They are grounded differently, and they can cause some backfeed. I'm not a professional audio panel installer. So I'm not 100% sure what the best options are, but I do know that you can put in some resistors to help drop that so that the impedance matches. But some of the benefits that you get from it are the alerts will be AOA, G-load, and roll. Connections can be made to switch or unswitch audio depending on this audio system, and shields should only be grounded at the audio panel. Audio can be checked by adjusting the volume in the setup menu or turning on the demo mode and install menu. So the next thing that a lot of people are installing right now are the AV Mag external magnetometer. The installation is pretty simple. If you can imagine this very, on your screen, maybe it's very large looking. It's actually very small. It fits in the palm of a child's hand, probably, is what I would say, or half of my palm. It's very small. It's sensitive to orientation and tilt and requires calibration before flight. It will run off the AV30 backup battery, which is a really nice feature. So if you, for some reason, you lose power, you'll still have the magnetometer running. The AV Mag transmits data to the AV30 via an RS-232 serial interface, and this can be paralleled to both AI and DG or third or fourth unit. So that part can be paralleled, and those are going to be the 2 wires will be the black and the brown that you would parallel to second, third, fourth units. So the AV30 provides aux power to the AV Mag. So one thing to make certain is that only one wire, only the red wire coming out of the AV Mag that's providing the power to the AV Mag is only connected to one AV30 on pin 13. So if you have more than one AV30, you don't parallel that to other units. You're only sending it to one AV30 so that it provides that aux power out. Some of the tools that you're going to need for installing this, like I've already said before, non-magnetic screwdriver and wrench. Make sure you don't use those magnetic screwdrivers. That makes our magnetometer not very happy. Non-magnetic, a digital level or a protractor, angle gauge, fish tape for pulling wire, and then drill and drill bits for mounting brass fasteners would be the other thing that would be good to have, or just making sure that they're not magnetic at all. So AVMag external magnetometer setup, what you're going to do is enter the install menu, and I haven't really gone over how to enter the install, so I'll go over that real quick. What you do with power off, you press and hold the center button, apply power, and once you see the uAvionix splash screen, what you do is release that center button, and everything looks the same, but what happens is the left button, which is the menu button, there'll be a third menu available. So you'll click, the first button will say edit fields, select fields, second button will be setup, third button will be install. And so you'll rotate there on the install menu and you'll rotate to serial 4. You'll set it to AVMag. And once you go over to aid mode, it will display AVMag and can't be changed, so it'll be grayed out. Then you'll enter into the AVMag install menu. You'll push the center rotary knob and then the right button to begin. If no external magnetometer is sensed, then the AVMag flag will appear. Check the wiring or the connection if no mag flag appears after connecting all the settings up in the external magnetometer. If the connection is good, then you will get a mag cal flag. So this, I would say this is probably one of my big questions that I get on support calls, is that they're saying that they have a no mag flag. And many times it's because of a connection. So making sure that you're checking to see where that might be, resistance, grounding, there could be various reasons why it may not be working. So the first thing in the menu is going to be the interference test that it'll take you through. And what you want to do is test your lights. So you turn all your lights on for 10 seconds and then you turn them off. And then you go to the next thing. You're going to rotate the center knob and you go to Avionics, turn everything off, wait 10 seconds, and then turn it off. Of course, there'll be some things you're not going to be able to turn off on the Avionics, like don't use the Avionics master switch. Probably you're going to want to turn each thing on individually. Controls, moving the controls to the complete movement. If you have electric trim, this would be a good time for this. Flaps to their full movement, retractable gear. And the aircraft should be on jacks, of course, to do that. Please don't do that without that. And then also turn everything else on that was not included, such as pitot heat. I think somebody told me that they didn't turn on a blower, and that ended up being something that was interfering with the AVMag. So the other is use your common sense and figure out what it is that might be needing to be turned on. And then all on. Just turn everything on that you've been doing, move the controls and all electrical systems, and then it'll give you a review. Of course, the review that's being displayed there is bad. So we want an interference range less than 10%. So of course that is telling you that's not good. And it will give you the one that probably was the biggest interferer. And then you can take a look at like, okay, well that's mounted in this position, this is where it is. Something to also think about doing is before you even install the external magnetometer and go through this, just get a camp compass and go into the location where you're thinking of mounting it and go through this whole interference check and have somebody watch the compass while you do all these things to see if it deflects anywhere. And so if you're moving the controls and you're like, whoa, it's like a big deflection, then that's probably not the best place to install it. So just doing some preliminary things would be really good. So the AVMag, the attitude of the AVMag is super important. So when you're mounting the AVMag, you want it to be as if it was like an arm to the AV30, if you can think of it that way. So if the AV30 is in the panel and you're in a tail dragger and it's, you know, at an angle down, it needs to be at the same angle as the AVMag. So however that position is, or if you have it mounted in the wing and your panel is tilted forward a little bit, you're going to need to put some spacers under the AVMag so it matches whatever the AV30 is doing. So you want to mount it as close as possible. Simultaneously, the AV mag should be orientated as parallel to the line of flight as best as possible. So if your line of flight, and this is all dependent on how you have it mounted. You see all the things to the right here, all the different ways that you can mount the AV mag. If you have the label right and wires aft, you still have to think about that being perpendicular and parallel to the line of flight. Just making sure that if you move the aircraft forward, it's going to be going straight and not it's not like at an angle or as if it were crabbed to the aircraft. So you may need washers for that to shim it out so that is nice and parallel. If not, you're gonna have to input some yaw. And to be honest, it's best to have the AV mag as much correct, as the direction of flight as possible, so you don't have any issues. So with the newest software update, we have quite a few different orientations that you can use. If you're going through there and you don't see all of these options, it's probably because you need to do a software update. So just be aware that this is, I think we have every possible way to install it on this. So AV mag, external magnetometer, the calibration. So it's super easy once you get it down once, it's pretty simple. So make sure first that you have a flag that says MagCal. If you have the flag that says MagCal, then you're going to want to take the aircraft to north. You just need to know north. Use your compass or a place on the airport, and you're going to want to line up to 360. What you're going to do then is the AV30 will tell you now turn right to 030. You can see on this right here, so it says go to 360, you click next. You'll see it do these little, it'll be like waiting, and then it'll tell you to move the aircraft 30 degrees. So what you'll see here is the 30 with the arrows. And that just means start turning to the right. You'll see the numbers go down. As you turn to the right, you're going to be going down from 30, 29, 28, 27, then you'll see 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you'll see 0. When you see 0, it'll be green. And that's where you need to make sure you stop. Go back to the left if you went past it, and just stay on green, and then click the next button, the right button. It'll do its little calculation, and then you'll be good to go to the next heading. Same thing, it'll say 30, and it'll count down all the way to 0, and it'll be green. So you don't need a compass rose to be able to do this. You can do it with just knowing what north is. Next, AV Link. This is PMA certified. We just got the certification a few months ago. It is a Wi-Fi bridge, and it displays on a separate MFD display. And it's unavailable during power loss. So if you do lose this, you won't have Wi-Fi then for the AV30. I'm sorry, for the AV Link. So you won't have traffic displayed on there. Update AV30s using the AV Link. Make sure to have the latest software. So this is one thing that we do run into mostly with the experimental. All the new AV30, the AV Link PMA'd ones will have the newest software. You don't have to worry about making sure it's updated to update the AV30s. If it's an experimental one that somebody has loaned you to do an update to the AV30, make sure it's been updated. I can't tell you how many times it's been sold old software, and then we have an issue with updating the AV30. There's a lot of great things coming with the AV Link that I don't even know about yet, but we are definitely making that something that's going to be a pretty cool product to be able to communicate through Wi-Fi to the AV30. So the AV Link installation, make sure that you have the most recent software update. Like I said, you'll need a 3/16 inch nut driver to be able to turn in the nuts that are right here. And then what you'll be able to do is then be able to screw these in. We are going to be coming out with thumb screws, so this will be changing. So you'll have thumb screws that will be used. Connecting to a web browser, what you'll end up doing is power on the AV Link by attaching it to the AV30. Once power is connected to the Wi-Fi, which will you'll be able to see AV dash or underscore 4 letters or numbers, which is the SSID. You'll click on that. And then once it says it's connected, it gives you a blue check mark or however your device tells you it's been connected. You can then navigate to the web browser 192.168.5.1, and you'll have a page display with the AV link and the AV30 information. The AV link, the new ones, the PMA ones, they do require you to put in a password. According to our documentation, you need to put in a password. If for some reason someone loses their password, they forget where they put it, which I know happens a lot, seems to be, we have a way to go through and reset that password. So what you can do is go to the installation menu named Reset AV Link and say yes, and then press and hold the right button, and it will reset the password. You'll just need to go back in there and do it again. For AV30 unit setup, this has been done on. If they've done it before 2.3.3, it's kind of like too bad. You can't reset it, so you have to find another unit to be able to, with the newer software on it, to be able to reset that. So something else that we're going to be coming out with is the AV APA. This right now is just experimental, but I want to make everybody aware that this is coming down and will be happening hopefully sooner than later, maybe by the end of this year. The STEC 20, 30, 40, and 50 will be what is able to be connected to with the AV APA. I'm not going to go into details right now. All this information can be found in our AV30E manual, and then once certified, it'll be in our certified manual. But it's pretty basic. The AV APA will connect to the AV30E. On one side, there's 2 connectors, as you can see, and then the other side will go to the autopilot, and it's just 2 connections that you'll be running to it. You do have to make sure that the autopilot is set up for a KI 525, and I know there's some resistors that might need to be changed for that. So all that information is in the AV30E manual. AVHSI is the other thing that's coming out soon, or another accessory. This also is available for experimental if you have anybody. This is going to be able to send ARINC 429 information to the AVHSI and from the AVHSI to the AV30s. And like what I was saying previously about the OAT probe, you're going to be able to connect, not connect, but since you're connected to one AV30, it's going to be able to feed information and sync on the other AV30s. So the sync feature is only available with the AVHSI, and because they all have to be connected to the AVHSI, it's going to share information back and forth. So there's a lot of neat features with this coming. It's a full IFR, so vertical and lateral deviation, and we'll see how far we're able to take this. It's pretty cool. And so it can do, just realize that we do need ARINC 429 or RS-232. So any of the old analog information from some older radios is not going to work. TailBeaconX is the other connection that we're going to go over. So it is the transponder. The AV30 has to be installed with the TailBeaconX for the certified aircraft. AV30E, experimental aircraft, they have other options, but for certified TailBeaconXs, it has to be the AV30C right now. So installation setup, install menu, you're going to have to go in there and set it up in to BeaconX and on serial port 2. And then to realize that there are some autopilot connections that can be made there. They're not yet certified, so it shouldn't be in use at the moment, but for any future use, just realize the TailBeaconX and the autopilot connections are on the same pins, and so you're going to have to make a decision. And actually going back a little bit, I will make note of this. The TailBeaconX in the future, if they have an AV APA that needs those pins 4 and 5, you'll be able to run it through the AV APA and have that information sent over. So not end of the world. Ground test mode is in the install menu. I'm going to go over that in just a moment. And then also configured call sign A. So you're going to see here, if you've configured it, you're going to see your call sign here, your squawk code, transponder mode, which would be standby on or alt. You have your NIC and your NAC, which NIC is integrity and NAC is accuracy. Of your GPS, you need to have numbers between 7 and 10 on the NIC and 8 and 10 on the NAC. I think it can actually go up to 11. Very rarely see it at 11. And then pressure altitude can be seen here. And then you have your stat. So if you have any issues here, you're going to see it come up on the stat. So if you have a fault or if you have no position, let's say your GPS, you have an issue with your GPS, it'll say no position. So this is a little explanation about standby on and alt. It's just like any other transponder. And it will automatically go to alt mode on the TailBeaconX. So as soon as you turn it on, if it's cycled power, it's going to go to alt mode. And it will initialize the airborne mode once you hit a certain airspeed. So you can leave that alone so you don't have to go over and turn it on. If for some reason you want to use the TailBeaconX GPS because there's no other GPS in the aircraft, one of the ways of doing that is connecting and paralleling pin 4 off of the AV30. So if you have one unit, this one would be controlling the TailBeaconX, and the second one would be just displaying the GPS information. Just realize the only GPS information that you'll be getting is the ground speed and the ground track. So we don't have any navigation information to be able to display on that. And the way that you're going to do that is in the setup menu. And like I said, it's all in the AV30C installation manual. So only displays ground speed and ground track. So TailBeaconX GPS does not provide IFR compliant lateral or vertical guidance, and it really doesn't show any navigational guidance. It's just ground track and ground speed. So TailBeaconX transponder control setup. So you start the AV30 in install mode, like I told you before. Press and hold the center button, apply power, and once the splash screen comes up, release the button, and then you'll click the left menu button until you get to install menu, rotate to select. That will come up, but you'll rotate to serial 2, select BeaconX, and then exit the install menu. There then is on the right button, you'll go over to the AI page, and that's where the transponder page will be displayed. It will say time out until you turn on the TailBeaconX, so make sure your TailBeaconX is on, and then it should come up with stat OK once it has position. If it has red X's on the NIC and the NAC, you'll see no position stated at the stat. So turn on the TailBeaconX, place the TailBeaconX in standby mode by pressing the center knob and then the right button, which is depending on your software version, that's going to change. So if you press the center button to the right, it may say VFR/mode, and VFR will be in bold. That means press and hold the right button. The bold will go to the mode, and then you'll click the right button to get to the standby mode and the on mode to toggle through those. If you have an older software version, then it's just going to be pressing the center button, and then you'll see, you'll press it twice, and then you'll see the mode button on the right, and you'll be able to change the mode. So once in standby mode, the Wi-Fi will be available, and you can configure the TailBeaconX using the app. So if you get a stat down here after you've turned everything on that says maintenance, it's probably because it's not been configured yet. So what is the TailBeaconX? The TailBeaconX is a Mode S Transponder, 1090 ES transmitter. So realize this small little unit is going to be outputting 250 watts. So some people ask, why doesn't it have ADS-B in? The main reason is because it has ADS-B out at 250 watts. You can't put a whole lot of stuff very close to that and still be usable. So partially part of the reason why the Wi-Fi is only available for setup. You're going to set it up in standby mode, and then also to put it into ground test mode, it will not have Wi-Fi either. So if this is a Mode S transponder, that means you can remove your transponder that is in the aircraft, and actually you need to remove the transponder that's in the aircraft or make it an op, or keep it turned off, however it is. I know there's some people in Canada that I talked to that they have their old Mode S Transponder. They don't want to quite get rid of it. They want to hold on to it. They just need to make sure that it's not being used at the same time as this one, because you're going to have, they're both doing the same thing. So you're going to be broadcasting from the same aircraft. So the TailBeaconX requires the AV30C to provide baro information. There's a lot of people that want to have the TailBeaconX without the control head of the AV30, and it can't be done. You can't just temporarily put it in there and I'll put the AV30 in later. You have to do them together. They can't be separate. It's not like the TailBeacon that works with your existing equipment. This is something completely different. So TailBeaconX system limitations, some things to be to realize is that it can't be installed when there's a SATCOM on board, TCAS, and it must be installed with an AV30C. So TailBeaconX materials and tools, some of the things you're going to need: wire, shielded wire, circuit breaker. Like I said, you need a 1 amp circuit breaker, pull type would be best. Environmental splices, which come with the install kit, and ring terminals. Thread locking compound for keeping it in place. So this is what the install kit looks like. We give you 3 options for screws to be able to mount it. Those should work. And for pretty much all installations. So some of the first questions that you're going to want to ask is the aircraft on the AML? If not, you can use the policy statement, FAA policy statement that we use for the TailBeacon and the SkyBeacon in the US. The problem is TailBeaconX is installed in a lot of other countries, and so we hopefully are going to be expanding that AML some more to include more aircraft. But we need to get some feedback of, you know, if they fit, how it fits, because some aircraft you can't fit at TailBeaconX. So we just need to have some of that feedback to be able to provide that. TSO manual and STC manual required. You're going to need to read both of them and make sure that they're the most current ones. Is anything covering up the GPS antenna or transponder antenna that could cause interference? So some things that you need to make sure is, like, in the installation, is it mounted in such a way that it's going to be, the GPS is not going to be able to receive, or the TailBeaconX is not going to be able to receive the GPS from the satellites. So even though it might be on the AML, make sure that it's being installed in the correct location, that it can be used properly. TailBeaconX installation kit is here, and there are extra ones if you need on our website. And you can go to uAvionix.com/support. So one of the things that you're going to have to do is download the SkyBeacon app for configuring it. It's the same one we use with SkyBeacon, the TailBeacon, and also the TailBeaconX. So you'll connect with the TailBeaconX Wi-Fi with the AV30C in standby, of course. Realize that the other way that you can do this is if you connect the TailBeaconX just to power and ground and have the yellow, the orange and gray wires not connected, it will have Wi-Fi, because it knows it doesn't have the AV30 or anything else controlling it to put it into altitude mode, so the Wi-Fi will work. You'll go through and configure it, monitor it, and then ground test mode from the install menu on 2.3.9 and following. Anything after that's going to have the ground test mode from the install menu, so you don't have to get on the app every time you want to do the ground test mode. It can be done from the AV30. So GPS interface with the external GPS, this is something else that you have the option of. I did go over the TailBeaconX and using that GPS. There is a way to connect the RS-232 inputs from in-panel GPSs and portable devices. So if it has aviation, a standard aviation, or a NEMA 4800, 9600, you can connect it up to the AV30. It'll provide ground speed, ground track, distance to destination, cross track, desired track, bearing, and waypoint. And the GPS can be parallel to multiple AV30 units. The AVHSI will provide vertical and lateral deviation for approaches on pins 2 and 3, so you'll be connecting both of those up. But that's going to be in the future. So maybe end of year, we'll see. TailBeaconX wiring diagram. I want to show this to you. So highly recommended to do a new a new circuit breaker switch, 1 amp circuit breaker switch for the TailBeaconX. It's only 5 wires. A lot of people get confused because our first TailBeaconXs for experimental didn't have the 5th wire. Just so you know, there's a white suppression wire that right here is an example of a KNS80. There's not very many DMEs out there anymore. Most people are using GPSs. So, but if you were to do that, you would connect it up to that suppression line. If not, it goes to ground. So if you don't have a DME, you just take the ground wire and the black and the white together, and you can just go to ground. And then you're going to go to pins 4 and 5 on the AV30, and pretty straightforward, not a whole lot. TailBeaconX altitude sources. TailBeaconX receives its barometric pressure altitude from the AV30. ADS-B always reports 299 or 2 standard pressure, so that's what the AV30 is going to be sending. So realize that if you change the baro on the AV30, the TailBeaconX is not going to match up to that because that's baro corrected. So pressure altitude is what's going to be sent to the TailBeaconX. So new pressure altitude data is received by the TailBeaconX every 700 milliseconds. And the TailBeaconX has its own onboard GPS, which provides geometric altitude, but barometric pressure altitude is what's preferred by the FAA. So experimental installations, there's a lot of different options for connecting and controlling the TailBeaconX, but I'm not going to go over those right now. AV30C setup with TailBeaconX. Either the AV30 AI or DG can be connected to the TailBeaconX for control of the transponder. Transponder display will appear as on the last page or the AI page. So you can see right here it says AI. Install menu setup with the AV30 off. Press and hold the center button, apply power, click the left button until you get to the install menu. Rotate to serial 2 and select BeaconX. If GPS track and ground speed from the TailBeaconX is desired, you're going to select BeaconX on the GPS nav source or serial 1, depending on the software version. So if you don't have another GPS source and you want that ground speed and ground track, you're going to select BeaconX for your GPS nav source. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. This takes you through the setup of the TailBeaconX with the AV30. I'm going to show you how to set up the TailBeaconX on the AV30 once it's been installed. First thing we're going to want to do is put it into install menu. So we're going to press and hold the center button and apply power. Once we see the splash screen come up, we can release the center button. And now we're going to have a third menu available by pressing the left button. And it'll say install, rotate to select. Now we'll rotate that center knob until we get the serial 2. We're going to select BeaconX and click Done. Nothing has changed on the primary page. This is the first page of 3. We're going to go to the 4th page, which is for the transponder control. My nav lights are on, and it is displaying all the information from the TailBeaconX except for the GPS. So as you can see, the GPS nick and nack, the integrity and the accuracy of the GPS are X'd out because we are inside a hangar. I'm now going to show you how to put it in standby mode so that we can connect to the Wi-Fi of the TailBeaconX. We're going to do that by pressing the center button until it says mode here to the right. Click the right button and it goes to standby. Now we can go back to the TailBeaconX on the app and connect to that and put it in ground test mode. After we put it in ground test mode, we'll have to come back in here and set it to altitude. Okay, now you're going to open up the SkyBeacon app and we're going to connect to the beacon.
We're going to join. So now we're connected. So now if you can see on the monitor page, all the way here at the bottom, it's going to say enable ground test mode. So we're going to go ahead and click that. Force airborne until device reset. So that means that we need to go back inside, and we're going to place the AV30 in altitude mode. So let's go back inside.
All right, so now we're going to come back inside, and we're going to do 2 presses on the center button, and we're going to change the mode to altitude. Now you're going to be able to go to the back, and it's going to be transmitting. And as you notice, the Wi-Fi on my iPad is turned off. I'm no longer connected to the Wi-Fi of the TailBeaconX. I do want you to notice that the NIC and the NAT, because we are inside, is GPS. Doesn't matter. You can still get the test set out and test the transponder now. It is outputting all the information you need to be able to test the transponder. So just a little review on that. That has changed a little bit. You can now do the ground test mode from the AV30 itself. In the install menu, you'll see GTM towards the end of the install menu, and you'll be able to put it in ground test mode without doing this extra step. I just wanted to give you this was previous to 239, and now after that you can get into the install menu and do the ground test mode from that. So IFR 6000 transponder testing. So if now you're back at the aircraft and you want to test the transponder of the TailBeaconX, some things to make you aware of: the IFR 6000 can be configured to use several different 1090 megahertz transponder antennas. The one that comes with the IFR 6000 are typically not the default selection. So this is one thing to be careful of. We are outputting 250 watts from that transponder, and it is at the back of the airplane. So it's a little different than testing other transponders that are at the bottom, the belly of the aircraft. This is very different than any other transponder, and that's probably part of the reason why it took us so long to get this certified. If you zoom in on the camera, if you zoom in on the antenna sticker, you can find the attenuation info as well as the antenna mode OPN info, which is shown in yellow and highlighted 1126884. 684. When you select the correct antenna, you will pass the Mode S test out of the box. To do this, you press setup 3 times to make sure your antenna type is set to the number that is on your attenuator. Some things that have happened since as we are getting this certified is some of the regulations have changed for Mode S all calls. So we were granted a deviation to not reply to ATC BRS Mode S all calls as required by ICAO Annex 10 volume, and I'll let you read all that. The test set that require response to Mode ACS all calls, likely ones manufactured prior to 2015, may indicate failures during the automated test passes. Unfortunately, this equipment will require updates to properly test any transponder certified after 1/1/2020. Transponders certified after January 1st, 2020 must not respond to the Mode S all calls, the long P4 interrogation. This may cause unexpected results to be attained by the transponder test set. So I just had a call today specifically about this because they said they weren't 100% sure why it was failing, but it was because we don't respond to it. So what it was doing was exactly what it's supposed to do. So FAA policy statement that we have used with the TailBeacon, the SkyBeacon, I just have that listed here. Just make yourself aware that that is available. If you can install it and want to install the TailBeaconX, and it complies with everything else of the STC, you can use this policy memo to be able to install it. So instructions for continued airworthiness, both for the AV30C and the AV30C and the TailBeaconX can be found on our website. It is something that's important to do with everything that's in your aircraft. And doing it yearly or checking to make sure that it's being kept up on is super important. Some of the things to make note of is TailBeaconX testing is required every 24 months, as you can see. And part of that is to realize that the AV30C is acting as the altitude encoder. So both of them need to be tested as if you're testing a transponder and an altitude encoder. So the one thing about the AV30C though is that it also has an altimeter on it. So technically it's going to need to comply closer to an altimeter than it will be to an encoder. So because in the encoder you get 125 feet, with an altimeter, depends on the altitude, how much feet deviation you can have. So there are some adjustments that you can make in the AV30, some low adjustments and high adjustments like you do on an encoder. And you're going to need to make sure that those are all taken care of. So when in ground test mode, ensure the static system is not connected to the static test set. So a lot of people like to do both of these at the same time. You cannot do it with the TailBeaconX because we do not have a coupler. So you'll get pop-ups and the FAA will not be happy with you. And we highly recommend not doing it that way. So you're going to test the transponder and then you're going to test the static system separate. There is they're communicating on RS-232. So it's not like a gray code encoder where you, if you're missing one wire, it's not going to work. It either works or it doesn't work. So you can test that on the test set when you're testing the transponder that is matching the AV30 altitude is what you're seeing on the TailBeaconX test set, or as you're testing the TailBeaconX. The AV30C then would then be calibrated as normal, like you would do an altimeter. So confirm the baro is correct on the app while in standby mode. And you can find all this stuff on our website with the most recent ICA installation manual. It's all there. So AV30C needs to be certified as a blind encoder or altimeter according to 91.4.11.413. So main thing to take away from this, do not test the static system and the transponder at the same time. I think that there's been too many times people get in trouble for this on and off because they think that because they're in a hangar, the transponder is not going to get out. Well, we're going at 250 watts. It's very possible it can get out. So last thing you want is to have, an Airbus flying over and seeing traffic, that's not there and having to turn to get away from it. So AV30C testing required. Like I said, the altitude trim procedure only applies when the AV30C is configured as an attitude indicator or transponder control head. In other cases, altitude is not displayed and therefore trimming is not applicable. But if you really, really want to do all of your, if you have two AV30Cs, one is a DG, one is an AI, and the customer really wants to make sure his DG is also performing well with pitot and static, you can do that. Also, you can also put it over to an attitude indicator and then calibrate it the same, the airspeed and the altimeter together, make sure that they're both indicating the same amount and adjust accordingly. But no requirement to do the DG. Some of the test and inspection schedules for the AV30C, visual inspection, altimeter, and battery. The battery test every 24 months. That's when you have to make sure that it's been charged all the way up, and then you drain and make sure it's lasting an hour. Every 5 years for IFR operations, that battery will need to be replaced. And we have those available on our website for sale. Service bulletins for the AV30C and TailBeaconX. So how to complete an update to a TailBeaconX? It's pretty simple. So current software version of the TailBeaconX is 3.4.0. You can visit our website for the latest software, make sure that's the correct software, and you can complete the update. It's as simple as connecting to the Wi-Fi, navigating to 912.168.4.1, and then clicking on ADS-B version right here. It'll take you to another web page where you'll be able to browse, grab that file that you downloaded from our website, and then push the software. It's a very, very easy to do, and I've even had people put the wrong software on there and they've been able to recuperate it. So as long as the Wi-Fi is still functioning, yeah, as long as they didn't mess up anything on the Wi-Fi version, they should be good to go. And then for the AV30C, the way to do an update on that, current software version, check the website, make sure you know what the current software version is. Visit our website for details on how to complete the update. We have a manual for this, but make sure you get the correct software. A lot of people Google search, and that is not the best way to find the current software. Go to our website. With the AV link, you're going to navigate to 192.168.5.1 on the AV link, and this is the page that you're going to see. So it's going to look like this when you navigate there and are connected to the AV link. You'll see the software version of the AV30, it's 239. That means it needs to be updated. To update the AV link, which is also out of date, you're going to click up here. It'll take you to another web page where you can update the AV link. Of course, this is not going to be happening for the certified AV link. This is this is an experimental version right here. And then to update the AV30 software, you're going to click down here, and that's also going to take you to another page where you'll browse, get your software and update it. So make sure you have the most current software downloaded. Make sure you're loading the correct software. You're not trying to load a PDF or some other type of software. Please check before you say, yes, that's what I want. Make sure that you're checking and making the correct selections on this. And all of this is in our service bulletin manual, so you shouldn't have a problem finding that. So this is with the AV link. Now with the update for with the cable, you're going to find a USB cable, RS-232 to USB cable. We recommend using the Sabrent cable. You can find it on a connection to our website. You're going to make sure you have downloaded the driver and you ground the power ground and the 5-pin ground also. So this one that's right here, 5 and pin 9, both of those need to be grounded. So you could have this installed in the aircraft and so that it's powered up so that you can do the update in the aircraft without removing it. RS-232 connections, 15 and 8 going to 2 and 3, and then follow the service bulletin. This is what the AV update tool looks like. You'll select the COM port, connect, it'll say AV detected. Open the file, it'll take you to your file folder. You might have to browse a little bit around to find what you just downloaded in your downloads, and then write firmware. And then it should just take a minute or two to be able to complete the update. During the update, the screen will go black and until the update is completed. If for some reason something is incorrect and the screen remains black and the update hasn't completed, or it didn't complete, or it says it completed, then what you can do is you can put it in bootloader mode so that it can try receiving another update again. And to put it in bootloader mode, you press the left and the right button with power off. Let me clarify. With power off, you press the left and the right button, power on, and continue to hold and count to 10. Once you count to 10, the screen will still remain black, but you'll be able to push software again. So if for some reason you lose power during the update, this is one of the ways to get it back. So for troubleshooting, some things that I see a lot, I'm going to go over. So AV30 issues, encoder knob, center knob, it gets jumpy. They go to set the baro and it jumps around. I promise you our software update to 2.1.5, which is pretty long time ago, fixes this issue. Some people might not be complaining, they might have really old software, and this is what's they're dealing with. So once they update, that should take care of it. Other than somebody completely breaking off the rotary knob, the software has fixed the issue. So airspeed on ground or in hangar, like I told you, the pitot 0 in the install menu. If it stays on battery, for some reason, you press the left and the right buttons, hold them down until shutdown. AI page does not show the transponder information. It's going to be configuration. Make sure that it's been configured. Obviously, if it's not showing any transponder information, it means serial 2 has not been set to BeaconX. Black screen after update, like I said, bootloader mode and push the software again. Press and hold the left and the right buttons and power up and count to 10. Hard reset. I've seen most of this has been on AV30Es. If for some reason they said they were turning on and off power quite a few times, and then they said they went back to it and it was a black screen. If this has nothing to do with doing an update, a hard reset can be completed. Of course, they're going to lose all their settings, not all of them, quite a few of them. To do the hard reset, press the center and the right button, apply power, and it'll reset to defaults. But the main thing is the screen will come back on. So things to be careful of. The screen is right behind the screw. So really need to take a look at that screw length and make sure that you are not going to extend that screw through the metal into the screen of the AV30. Don't parallel the OAT probe because it won't work, and make sure you have the correct OAT probe. Bonding requirements, make sure you have it shielded. And then do not complete an update with the AV link unless the most recent software has been completed on the AV link. If you have a certified AV link, it will have the most recent software update, but it is possible in the future that we have new updates come out. So failure annunciations on the TailBeaconX will be loss of communication with the TailBeaconX. TailBeaconX is cycling power or flickering. TailBeaconX is not configured. TailBeaconX does not have a GPS position and maintenance required. So as you can see right here, the transponder status, the things that you'll see, you want to make sure you see the OK, but no position. Of course, you don't have position information, no GPS. If there's a fail or an issue going on, you'll see it fail. Timeout is probably the most common thing that we see. And if there's something with the connections on the orange and the gray wires that are not making good contact, or they haven't been crimped well, for whatever reason, the high resistance, you're going to see the timeout. And so that one means pretty much that on those wires, there's no communication going on. Maintenance required, that's pretty much just means you need to configure the TailBeaconX. Retrieving configuration from the transponder is wait and fault unknown generic fault. Sometimes you'll see this along with no position. If you're having GPS problems, you might see the fault show up. So some of the things that you're going to want to do with the TailBeaconX is request a ADS-B performance report to find out anything that might be failing. I always recommend these yearly. So every year getting an ADS-B performance report and making sure that everything is as good as it seems. Or if ATC tells you that something's going on, this is what you can request to find out if you're seeing a failure of some sort. So one of the things that we'll see is if you're having GPS issues for various reasons, you'll see this, the NIC of, it's like 8-minute failure, most dropping to 0. This could be for varying reasons. I can tell you right now, it's pretty much shutting off because I'm seeing failures on a few different things. Even though they're not flagged in red, there are failures on NIC, SIL, and SDA. So those things are indicating to me that stuff's getting cycled on and off. This can be for comm interference. So if you have comm radios that are interfering with your GPS or something else that's interfering with your GPS, this might be the cause of it. Realize that if you have a NIC failure, you're going to have a barrel alt failure. It doesn't mean you have an issue with the barrel. It's because they're sent in the same message. And so if one's missing, you're going to miss the other. So you can always request an extended report to find out more information. This is where you would do that. Excuse me. And then extended ADS-B report is going to look something like this. So what you're going to see is you'll see red marks. That means it's failing for something in certain areas. And then as you come around, you can see, oh, it's doing really well. So for some reason, we need to investigate like why it might be having an issue in these areas. So just real quick, I'm gonna throw this out there for the Canadians that are around. There is a NAV Canada website where you can go and get a report also. It's gonna have, I think it's even changed since this picture. So they keep updating their system to help track it. It's gonna just present it in a little bit different way. They have French, and then they have NIC and NAG, SIL, and STA also. So if you're having issues with anything, you'd be able to find them. Obviously, something's not quite right with this. I won't go into details about what this is, but you can get this information there. Flight ID. So all this information is here also. As you can see, the end of this, everything's passing. So for additional support, please contact us at uAvionix.com/support or call us. And our team is myself, Lou, Brandon, Greg, and Garrett, and we can help you navigate any issues that you might be having. Submitting a support ticket is going to be the fastest way. Sometimes you end up on hold a little too long because we're on the phone quite a bit. So tickets are usually easiest to reach out to you. So you can always request us to give you a call back. Thanks so much, and please install any of our AV30s, TailBeaconX, and we'll help you along the way, anything that you need to learn.